Let me get a little bit of understanding here, first of all. And by the way, you can take notes if you want, if there's something that hits you, but this slide, entire PowerPoint presentation is available to you. And if you leave me your card, or I'll put some cards out here, you can pick one up and send me an email, and I'll be glad to send it directly to you so you'll get all of this information. Your role in the organization. Do we have any board members? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. CEOs? Okay. COOs or chief program officers? Or okay. Other interested bystanders, we have a few. Okay, that's good to have too. How many of you, in reference to a strategic plan, say you have one but it's outdated? Okay. You're working on it. All right. We have one and it's working. Okay. The other question that I often ask people is, if they say they have a strategic plan, where is it? Is it in your head? Is it on a shelf someplace where it's just sitting collecting dust? Some of that. Okay, on the matter of mission, vision, and values for your organization, how many would say you're good to go? We have mission, vision, and values. Okay. They need to be updated. How many would say that? All right. Anybody working on them currently? Okay. What are they? Is sort of the next thing I'll talk about. And just before I jump into that, a couple definitions. Strategy, a particular long-term plan for success, especially in business and politics. And strategic, important is the key word, important to a strategy or to strategy in general. It's those important things that are the strategic things. In mission, vision, and values, your mission tells the fundamental purpose of your organization. And it defines the customer, the critical process, and informs you of the desired level of performance. That's sort of the base. Your vision, what the organization wants to be, so that you can visualize what's happening. I used to have a story that I would tell at the mission that helped people visualize what we were about. I would talk about a guy that came in as a transient, had a drug problem, eventually entered our rehab program, although he had been in 14 other rehab programs, and figured, well, this gets me a little bit longer stay, and I'll stay here. But he accepted Christ, and it really took hold. He became a cook for us, eventually became director of food services. So that transition from being a weight on society to now being productive in society and having eternal value, because he was following Christ and in fact leading others to Christ that were working with him in the kitchen. So that was the vision of the organization. It was defined a little bit better than that in a 5 or 6 word statement, but that really drew the picture in people's minds when I shared that. And then your values, the important and enduring beliefs or ideals that you have. Now, your statement of faith can certainly be a part of that, but many organizations add to that and identify particular areas. So those become a real base for you. I picked on City Union mission a little bit. Anybody here from City Union? Kansas City? Nope? Okay. You can tell them what I was picking on. They were clear on their website what their mission statement was. And they shared it with others. Definitely a good mission statement. The only thing that I might have added to it was a little bit more location that showed where they were functioning in, whether it was all of Missouri or just the greater Kansas City area, something of that sort. You do have to be careful about that because if you have expansion plans, it's good if you've expanded enough in a geographical area, so just something to keep in mind. They then had their core values and a statement listed, and a statement of faith, and here you can see some of their other values of being Christ-centered, biblically based, accountability, and in each of these cases, again, this is from their website, they had another area here to read more in each of those so that they filled in even more information. There was nothing that really said what their vision was, but it sort of stood out when you looked at their website to say, hope lives here. And that gives you an idea of really what they're about and what they're headed towards. So mission, vision, values is the starting place for really your strategic plan. That's the base, and you need to have those. In the elements of the strategic plan, there's normally 4 elements: the assessment or analysis, the design, and the building it out. Those 3 elements will take months to accomplish if you're doing it right. So it's not something that's going to happen in a month or any time shorter than that. It really takes some time to look at things and to get the people involved that you need to get involved. And then there's the managing of it, the ongoing process. Lots of times, rather than just talk about strategic planning, I like to talk about strategic management because it gets over into that idea. Yes, you have to have a plan, but if you aren't managing that in an ongoing process, it's not going to be effective. That first area, the assessing or analyzing. How many of you have done a SWOT analysis? Okay. Several of you have been involved in that. And taking a look at what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Asking the questions of your staff. Asking the questions of your board members. Asking the questions to a select group of voters. And in my estimation, you ought to be asking your guests and residents these questions too, because they can give you a perspective that your board and your staff do not have in quite the same way, and may point out a particular weakness or a particular strength that's there, or there may be an opportunity to minister better to them. So asking all of those people is a good thing to do. Doing a SWOT analysis, you, in a lot of cases, do it in a group setting where you've got your staff together or you've got your board together and you go through these different questions. And they feed off of each other then. One thing leads to another, and somebody suggests this or that. During COVID, I was working with a couple missions on this, and so it was difficult to pull everybody together. And so we tried something a little bit different. I did individual calls to board members and to staff members to do a SWOT analysis. I learned something, that sometimes it is better to do it individually than in a group setting. Because as I talked with them on the phone and did this, I would say to them, look, whatever you have to say is confidential, and I will maybe reword it in my report to get across what you're saying, but I won't use your words and I won't identify you in any way. there were a number of things that came out from board members and staff that they weren't quite willing to say in a group that they said on that one-to-one call. And the difference of also being an outsider, in that I was a consultant to the group rather than the CEO or something of that sort. Now, hopefully, your staff and the guests and the others would be open and candid enough with you. But there is a dimension that, okay, he's the boss, and you know, maybe I don't want to quite share that in the way that I would like to say it. So I'll get into who should do it a little bit later, but that's your call. But certainly the SWOT analysis and all of the questions that go along with it is one thing to do. One mission I was dealing with had been through so many SWOT analyses, they said, is there something else we can do? Well, there are a number of other vehicles to do too, and one's called PESTLE. And this picks on a little different area, but brings out a lot of the issues too. The P stands for political, and you might say, well, we're not a political organization. Yeah, but every one of you deal with the local politics of your community one way or another, whether it's the zoning or whether it's who's running for sheriff maybe and what their attitude is toward the homeless. So there are a number of political things. Tax policy is something else that you face. So it's always good, as many of you well know, to have a ongoing relationship with your, whether you have county commissioners or freeholders or whoever your political people there, the mayor, the city council, to have some knowledge of them and your congressman before you need it, and to have them aware of you so that you have a relationship before. I had a problem with one mission that it was important to have that. We had thrift stores. We had what was used to be called an industrial program of recycling back before newspaper and cardboard prices went south. We were shipping about a trailer truck of newspaper a day that we were running the local recycling program basically for the community. Well, we were paying a stipend to the men in the program to participate. And somebody filed a complaint against us, and Department of Labor visited us, and we needed to change some things. And that was true and appropriate because we were dealing with interstate commerce. Because that paper was being shipped across state lines. Now, lest you think you're not involved in interstate commerce, let me say that the definition that they have of interstate commerce is so broad that all of us are involved in interstate commerce. If you answer a telephone that's a long-distance call from across the state line, you're involved in interstate commerce. So they have a pretty broad definition. But we had a relationship with our congressman prior to that, and the penalties they could have levied against us were removed totally, and just said, okay, you need to change the way you're doing things, and we agreed, and we changed the way we were doing things. But in the tens of thousands of dollars, the penalties weren't there from the Department of Labor. And it happened to be that the congressman that we had was also on the Finance Committee of Congress, so that helped a little bit because he just determined the allocations for the Department of Labor along the way and some of them. So political, economic, you certainly get hit by inflation like anybody else, and so the questions that you could ask there, the social things, the demography of your community. When I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then I went to Philadelphia, the demographics were quite different. In Lancaster, I was a big fish in a small pond. When I went to Philadelphia, I was a very small fish in a big pond with the rescue mission. And just all of the differences there were interesting. So the social impact there, technology, environmental, and the legal. The legal is certainly an area that more and more of our board members are concerned about because they hear what's going on and we know what we have to face, whether it's in matters of gender and how we address those with people. Any number of other things. When I was in Philadelphia, I was talking with an insurance agent, and it is the most litigious city in the nation. So we had about 6 lawsuits a year in Philadelphia from different people. So that was something in our planning that we had to consider, and what our insurance was going to be like, what it meant certain things for what our inspections were like of our property. We became much more detailed at looking at things and trying to prevent things. So that affected our planning. So a pestle analysis is another good way to go and gives an alternative. I hesitate to say gives an alternative to the SWOT because both of them are still very, very useful, and as much as you can get all of those questions in, the better it is for you. And then there's one other that I like to use, and this is called a balanced scorecard. This is developed by 2 Harvard professors that looked at literally thousands of organizations, for-profit and non-profit. And they identified 4 areas that all of the organizations had to take care of if they were going to be successful. Financial, duh, that makes sense. No money, no ministry, sort of. Internal business processes, what's happened in the organization. Learning and growth was an interesting one that they identified in the development of the organization. And the customer. For us, it would be our guests, but also with the customer, it includes all of the various stakeholders that you may have. So it may be a board member, it is your staff, definitely. All of those are customers within your organization and the functioning of it. And there's 4 questions that go with each of those. To succeed financially, how should we appear to our stakeholders? Probably the answer that I got most often, especially from board members, was transparency. That happened again and again, that they wanted to have their finances as transparent as possible and show their stewardship of the organization. Internal processes. To satisfy our stakeholders and customers, what business processes must we excel at? What do you have to really be good at? And providing radical hospitality in our shelter services is maybe one of the answers to those questions. We need to be good at our restoration or rehabilitation services. There's just a number of answers that come from that question. In the customer, to achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? Now, some people react to this word appearing. I don't want to just appear, I want to be. Well, yeah, it's the semantics of it. That's what it means. What do we want to be? To achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers?
I'm not sure what learning and growth is.
Yeah, I'm going to go back there. I wanted to jump over to the other one for a minute. And just what do our residents see? What does our board see? And how should we look to them? How do we need to be living that? And then learning and growth. To achieve our vision, how, seems like there's a word missing there, to achieve our vision, how will our ability to change and improve, how will we manage our ability to change and improve? If you don't figure some things for growth and you're totally static, your organization isn't going to succeed if you stay the same. So that you need to have a learning and growth element in there. If you aren't learning from your mistakes, if you aren't preparing your staff for some of the places that you may be going in the future to help them. For those of you that have retail stores, it's not rolled out yet, but City Vision is just about to have approved a retail management, a number of retail management courses. We're going to have a certificate in retail management. But to help them understand what needs to be done in that management, to help them with leadership, to help them with the HR parts of that, and so helping your staff in that area. So that's some of the learning and growth area in a bigger organization. So that's another series of questions to do in this assessing of where we are. When you do all of that, you end up with loads of information. Imagine talking to maybe 9 board members and all of their answers, 10 to 20 staff, all of their answers, a number of your residents, all of their answers, a few donors, all of their answers, and it accumulates into a lot of information. But one of the things that will begin to show is that there's going to be repetition in what they're saying, and they'll stand out to you in certain areas that are important to everybody. And it will begin to come across as you're asking these questions. And to take that and synthesize that information, to bring some of the things together. One of the individuals may be talking about, well, we really need to get more donors. And another one may be saying, well, we need to take care of our debt. And another may be saying, well, we really ought to increase our endowment. And all of those have a flow that you might describe and synthesize into being good stewards of what God is giving us. And so there can be a synthesis of that information. The more people you talk to, the better. Proverbs 15:22, without counsel purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors they are established. And so that multitude of counselors and that information from different people. One of the things you might also want to consider is a community needs assessment in your strategic plan. Talking to the other social service agencies, talking to other political leaders out in your community, others that the police department, whoever else it may be. And it may be that somebody has already done this. Maybe the mental health agency in your area or the hospital has done this, and you can just gather that information that they've produced. But it's good information to have, because it may identify some areas where you were thinking, well, we need to be doing something in there, and then you learn somebody's already got great plans for doing, and you can just piggyback or partner with them in some of the things that they're doing.